What is shaken, Internet? Welcome to the Warrior class preview for the Legion expansion of World of Warcraft. Basically, earlier this week, Blizzard revealed the class previews for pretty much all the classes in World of Warcraft, except for maybe the Demon Hunter, which is the new one. But it's going to be the basic changes that are going to come in the Legion expansion. Obviously, all of this is preliminary and not quite out because the beta isn't out completely yet. But I'm going to go ahead and review all the changes and give you my thoughts on them. So let's go ahead and start with the overall view that Blizzard had on this. This is going to be over the Warrior, which specifically is the Protection Warrior for the tanking class. So the overall goal is, one notable goal we have for Warriors and Legion is to significantly expand their customizability through talents, especially for Arms and Fury. If the below core ability seems sparse, it's to leave room for more from talents than ever before. Both specs now have 5 rows of core throughput talents, mostly different between Arms and Fury too, with a strong mix of active rotational abilities, passives, procs, cooldowns, and other interesting effects. You'll find old favorites like Overpower, Heroic Strike, and Opportunity Strikes, returning classics like Avatar, Dragon Roar, and Stormbolt, along with a host of brand new talents. We look forward to seeing the combinations that you put together. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip down here to the actual Protection class. Arms and Fury, you can go read about them. I don't play them, so I don't know anything about them. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the lore text here and go straight to the gameplay. Let's go ahead and read this. Protection gameplay... Start from the beginning. Protection gameplay ties strongly to Warrior lore and exemplifies the very foundation of the tank role in the game, so we're primarily focused on fine-tuning their mechanics. Shield Block and Shield Barrier in particular often created a trap choice for players. We've replaced Shield Barrier with a new ability, Ignore Pain, which massively reduces damage taken, up to a cap based on maximum health, and functions as your primary defensive rage spender. It doesn't compete as much with Shield Block, and thus provides you with the distinct tools in your arsenal to apply to different situations. In terms of rage, Protection Warriors now primarily regenerate rage through taking damage, supplemented by a baseline rage income from ability usage. This plays well with Ignore Pain as their primary rage spender. It's most useful when you're taking a lot of damage, which is also when you'll have lots of rage to use on it. Okay, so basically what they're doing here is they're not changing too much. They are changing Shield Block. Specifically, they are removing Shield Barrier. And we'll cover the changes to the defensive abilities first, but let's go ahead and read through these offensive abilities and talk about them. So, offensive, Devastate, melee range, instant, a direct strike dealing moderate physical damage. Devastate has a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Shield Slam. I don't think anything's changed here at all. No cooldown, attack, reset Shield Slam, all good. This is exactly the same as it is now. Revenge, melee range, instant, 9-second cooldown. Swing in a wide arc, dealing strong damage to all enemies in front of you. Generates 4 rage. Your successful dodges and parries reset the cooldown of Revenge. Cannot occur more than every 3 seconds. I think this is relatively the same. Basically, Revenge, you just use it all the time whenever it procs. Next, Deep Wounds, passive. Your Devastate and Revenge cause the target to bleed for strong physical damage over 15 seconds. This effect is cancelled if the target reaches full health. Cool. Basically, you're going to be bleeding. I believe this is also in already, so moving right along. Thunderclap, instant 6-second cooldown. Blasts all enemies within 8 yards for moderate damage and reduces their movement speed by 50% for 10 seconds. Again, no changes here. Shield Slam, melee range, instant, 9-second cooldown. Slam the target with your shield, causing strong physical damage. Generates 6 rage. Again, no changes. Heroic Strike, 30 rage, melee range, instant. Instantly deals moderate physical damage. This ability is not on the global cooldown. No changes there as well. Nothing seems to have changed at all on the offensive side. Basically, you're going to continue to use Devastate, just over and over, spam, Devastate. Use Revenge whenever it procs. Thunderclap if you're in a big crowd. Shield Slam on cooldown or if it gets reset. And Heroic Strike if you need to use Rage. However, I don't think Heroic Strike will pretty much be used at all. Based on the defensive abilities, which we will now move down to. So defensive abilities, let's go ahead and start right here. Shield Block, 10 rage, instant, 12-second recharge, 2 charges. Raise your shield blocking every melee attack against you for 6 seconds. These blocks can be critical blocks. Shield Slam deals 30% additional damage while Shield Block is active. Cool. I believe that's mostly the same. Shield block feels like that's not true. It feels like shield block requires more rage now. Instead of being 10 rage, isn't it like 40 rage? 12-second recharge on the charges, 2 charges. That also seems, I mean, it's similar numbers based on what I know. Based on what I've been playing, shield block is something like this. We do have 2 charges on it. It does recharge around 12 seconds, maybe 10 to 15. I can't remember the exact number. But it feels like it costs more than 10 rage now. So I guess maybe they'd be cutting down the rage cost on that. So if in that case, if they've cut down the rage cost on shield block, then cool. We're going to be able to shield block more often. Or really, we're not going to shield block more often, but we're going to be shield blocking, and it's not going to take as much rage. Great. Then you go to the next one. The next one is the big one. Ignore pain. This is the new ability. 40 rage, instant. Fight through the pain, ignoring 90% of the next total damage that you take from any source. Which is a maximum of 25% of your maximum health. So, that's a thing. Basically, what this is going to be your total rage dump. You will always use ignore pain. Like, there is never a scenario that I could think of that I would want to use heroic strike instead of ignore pain, unless I'm off tanking, unless I'm actively not tanking anything in the fight at all. Then I would use heroic strike. But otherwise, ignore pain is going to be our rage dump. It's going to be used on cooldown. There is no cooldown, so it's literally when you have 40 range, you will use ignore pain. You could be using this as for a specific mechanic. If you know a big hit's coming up, you can use that. But I'm assuming we still have the big cooldowns for that. We will still have, shield wall, other abilities, the bigger defensive cooldowns. We're still going to have those, I'm assuming. So this is just the active mitigation, which means ignore pain will be used pretty much for all of our rage. All of our rage will go towards ignore pain, unless we're using it a tiny little bit on shield block. There you go. Spell reflection, instant 25-second cooldown. Raise your shield, reflecting spells cast on you and reducing magical damage taken by 30%. Lasts 5 seconds or until a spell is reflected. I don't believe this has changed pretty much at all. Yeah. Mastery, critical block. Increases your chance to block by 10%, and your chance to critically block by 30%. Also increases your attack power by 20%. I believe that's pretty much about what we have now. Basically, yay, we get to block a whole bunch more, all that stuff. I really like overall, what you're seeing here is that nothing's changing. It feels like the Protection Warrior is probably one of the least affected classes of all of the tank classes that I've seen. And, really, the only change is that Ignore Pain is a new move, and Shield Barrier is gone. So instead of having this big Absorption Shield move that costs a lot of rage, we're going to have a complete, removal of damage, like a reduction of damage all the time. Because of that, because the shield block is going to be less rage, and because Ignore Pain costs 40 rage, we were going to be spending all of our rage on that. It just feels like that's how it's going to be. It could be wrong, but that's very simple. Instead of, before, you had to choose between shield block or shield barrier. It's like, which one am I going to use? Which one am I going to use? It depends on the fight. Depends on something. But now it's like, okay, use shield block whenever you're going to be taking any damage at all, and ignore pain whenever you have rage, period. Like, that's... it doesn't... It feels like it's dumbing it down, almost. It feels like the warrior is even simpler because of these changes. I could be wrong. These are just my initial thoughts when I read this. I'm not sold. Like, it doesn't feel innovative. It doesn't feel crazy good. I'm not saying it's bad. None of it's bad. Everything on here is fine. It's just nothing's changing. So it's like, okay, more of the same. Cool. If you liked the warrior before, you're probably going to like him in Legion. There you go. Okay, let's do our little last blurb here. Additionally, to give you an idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their protection-specific talents. Shield Discipline. Shield Slam extends the duration of shield block by 2 seconds, and shield block increases the damage of shield slam by an additional 30%. Woo! Awesome! 2 moves that you're going to be doing all the time, now let you do stuff more of the time. Cool. Basically, it increases the uptime of your shield block by, to like a 66% uptime all the time. And shield block increases the damage of shield slam by, so more damage. Cool. Basically, these are just like, I love passive talents. That's probably one I'm going to pick up, because those are 2 moves that you're going to be spending, going to be using all the time anyway. So, yeah, great. Either way, the Warrior is not underwhelming. It's just more the same. That's really the long and short of what's going on here. There's no sweeping changes for the Warrior, it feels like. So, obviously I'll have more details when I get into the beta, if I get into the Legion beta. If I get into the Legion beta, I will be putting out more videos. Until then, I'm going to go ahead and leave you with that. Please like, favorite, share, subscribe. I hope you like this video, and as always, you keep it salty, Internet.